Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a live post show for AEW Forbidden Door. My name is Ango. I got Billy in here. Billy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Chat, can you guys hear us? Can you guys hear us? I just want to make sure everybody can listen because we are definitely going to talk about this pay-per-view. There were some good things. There were some things I didn't like.
Yep.
But the title of the stream is that the future looks bright for AEW, and that does require changes. I'm not going to give them a free pass. There were some things I don't like, but there are some things that I do like, and I feel like if they continue with those types of things, I feel like it could be a really good thing for AEW. With that being said, my name is Ango. We are joined by Billy TKO. We are live on YouTube and Twitch. And in addition to that, we are live on X as well. If you guys want to support the channel, there's a couple different ways to do so. You could click like, you could click subscribe. That is greatly appreciated. One of the big things too is if you drop a super chat, it guarantees that your question or comment gets read. I know it is 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right now. So, definitely a little bit crazy considering the fact that AEW's pay-per-view started at 6:30.
Man, oh man.
Yeah. 6:30 a.m. It went quite long. But we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
14, 15 matches. I'm going to skip the pre-show stuff. I don't agree with House of Black or any of those guys really just being on the pre-show.
No, don't agree with it. I said the same thing watching that entrance.
Yeah. Really fun match, though, with Willow Nightingale and Tam Nakano.
Yes, that was an exciting match. And they had like a little backstage segment, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
But overall, we're not going to focus on the kickoff show. We're going to talk about the main card. So if you guys are joining us, thank you for that. Listen, Billy, I just want to kick things off. Let me get your overall thoughts on the pay-per-view, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the good things, some of the bad things, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, so overall, we've talked about it numerous times. I think if you're a professional wrestling fan, you can sit up and say comfortably that AEW knows how to put on great wrestling matches.
Yeah.
They're so good at it. You can make the argument, whatever, the storytelling, whatever. They put on great professional wrestling matches. Now, the problem with all those great wrestling matches is that it gets tiresome sometimes. Like today we have 14 matches on a card, starts at 6:30 p.m. and it's now, almost 12:30. So that's a quarter of somebody's day that you're asking to spend watching wrestling. So I don't know. But overall, a fan of the show. Definitely some critiques that I'd make, but it did what it needed to do, especially at the end.
Which is what? Tell me what I would love to hear you elaborate a little bit more on that.
What it needed to do.
Yeah.
So I think I can't say the whole show overall did, because I think that's where I messed up. Is I said the whole show overall did what it needed to do, but the ending kind of saved it for me to where I felt comfortable saying that. So when I say that, I mean it pulled at my heartstrings a little bit, which is what I feel like I needed from AEW, because one thing that I've struggled with as an AEW fan recently is trying to get invested in their storylines, because it feels like things are their start and nothing gets finished. That's just what it feels like currently. And Ango, you can correct me if I'm wrong, But
yeah, I mean, I think overall the biggest thing is like tonight's show, for as many matches as there were, the pacing was actually relatively good, which I feel like sometimes that's actually one of the biggest issues with AEW. Mm-hmm. But I feel like you gotta have to doing something with a little bit of a bigger purpose, because a lot of people will say, well, what's the story or whatever, but for me it truly is, what's the purpose of this? Why is this so important to take place on this pay-per-view?
Yeah. And
there was things on this pay-per-view where I'm like, okay, you didn't need to do that. Now, with that being said, when it comes to best bang for your buck, it's a $50 pay-per-view. You're getting 13, 14, 15 matches. You're going to throw some shit on there, right?
Yeah.
But there's things where sometimes I'm like, this isn't probably the best place to do it. Now, with that being said, though, AEW did deliver some really good moments or some really good matches to the point where I'm like, that should have been a bigger focus, and maybe it didn't get the big focus prior, right?
Yep.
But I do feel like to a certain extent, I understand where you're coming from. And one thing I do want to say too, my biggest gripe with AEW is you got to get on streaming. Like, you really got to get on streaming, because these long pay-per-views, even though the pace was relatively better than most, this is a pay-per-view where I'm just like, man, you could have done, if this was like on Peacock, like WWE does Peacock, if they had a similar situation or a similar deal and you did 8 matches, I can tell you right now, just by looking at the card, which matches could have just been placed on TV, you know? And I could have told you which ones made a little bit more sense. So let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. Yep. Like I said, I don't want to focus on the pre-show. I thought the pre-show, in my opinion, I mean, it's cool, especially for the fans in attendance, but to me, the pre-show doesn't matter.
No.
This was a card that had an incredible main event. Main event. We saw a fantastic main event between Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. It's great because this was a great build, in my opinion. I thought they did a great job building this match. But, it's like we know Ospreay and Swerve are going to go out there and kill it.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't even a thought that match wasn't going to be good. Whether there was a story or not, you knew the wrestling match was going to be good.
Yeah, and I feel like this match was really cool. Jim Jones comes out with Swerve. As somebody who's a fan of Dipset, like, that's cool,
Yeah.
Swerve is a great world champion. And sometimes I feel like AEW inconsistently presents him as a great AEW champion, right? Sometimes he's not the main event segment. Sometimes he's not the biggest focus because there's another storyline that kind of takes precedence over that. But if there's one thing that AEW really assured me with this main event tonight, is that if AEW does put a lot of stock and value in Swerve and Ospreay, All In should really be about them. And in a weird way, I feel like that finish with Don Callis kind of screwing Ospreay. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they had this epic ref bump. I like my ref bumps when they happen in a match, especially, if it like leads to something cool. And Don Callis gives Ospreay a screwdriver and he refuses to be a dickhead with it. So that kind of cost him the match, right? So I feel like they left a little bit of room for All In.
Now, here's my thing: is the question that I'm having here with All In is the Owen Cup.
Yeah.
And how the winner gets a shot at the world. I truthfully think that we're gonna step away from Ospreay and Swerve for now. Yeah. And then at All In do MJF and Ospreay. And then eventually the winner of the Owen Cup going on to take on Strickland.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to go about it, and to be fair, like, there's the rumor of Hangman getting involved, which obviously you can revisit Hangman and Swerve.
Yep.
I love when they do callbacks in wrestling, and you can't ignore things that have happened in the past. Sometimes that happens with AEW where they do ignore things that have happened in the past. So I hope they don't. But I do feel like there is a little bit more meat on the bone when it comes to Ospreay and Swerve. And that's why I like the way they book this, because if they go, whoever wins the Owen tournament or like whatever happens, right? I do feel like there is something there they can go back to and revisit.
Yeah.
When you deliver a great match, it's awesome, right? And people who follow me, and obviously this, Billy, like, I want things to have a purpose. I want things to have a good story. I want to be hooked in. When I say the future of AEW looks bright, there's a couple different circumstances or situations that have happened in tonight's show where I'm like, I would really love AEW to build off that. And Swerve and Ospreay are those guys. Overall, this match was a fucking absolute banger. You'll never, ever hear me question this. You'll never hear me like, I have a lot of respect for Will Ospreay. I've been saying for years, like, hey, this guy is a great promo. When people were saying, hey, this guy isn't going to be good in WWE, I'm thinking this guy can do character work, but he's also a fantastic athlete. So when I see Ospreay do this kind of stuff where like, it's funny because my cousins will joke about it, but like, oh, the melodrama, like from WWE, it kind of carried over into this match.
Yeah.
But it kind of made me even buy a little bit more into it. The ref bump and the theatrics with Don Callis. There is something there.
Yeah, which is what AEW, it needs that, right? Because that's kind of what, okay, so all the people that are like, oh, why are you harping on AEW? Well, this is kind of the reason why, because we want to see more of this. This is why you kind of harp on AEW. I'm not saying they're perfect and this is the only thing, but this is definitely, at least for me, a main concern, right? I want more storytelling in my professional wrestling. I think you and I can both agree on that. That's why we cover WWE and we talk about it the way that we do, is because right now they're doing a fantastic job with the storytelling. So when I'm getting storytelling out of a match of this caliber, and it makes sense, and I'm looking at two great athletes, like you said, just tell this amazing story, it gets me excited and it makes me it's easy to invest in. I see Daniel Garcia in the crowd, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense, right? Because we played in on last Wednesday, or I see MJF in the back. Okay, so we're going to build on those two, colliding. Like those things make sense, and I like that. So really what it did is it added a lot of focus to whatever Will Ospreay is about to do, and left a lot of question for what Swerve's going to do.
Yeah.
Which I like. You left me with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, so in that honestly, I didn't know if they had anything else planned for this, because it kind of felt like, hey, they might have something at the end of the show. But what I will say this too, though, is like, Daniel Garcia could be on TV and somewhat be involved or whatever. But the most important thing is you got to do it consistently. Because unfortunately, one of my biggest gripes about this match is the fact that Ospreay was holding the international championship.
Yeah,
and that was actually one of my big complaints about this pay-per-view in general. Like, it would have been really cool. Obviously, you have Okada doing the trios match, but it would have been really cool for like the Continental Classic Championship being on the line in a fatal four-way match, or the International Championship being on the line in a fatal four-way match, or something.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like there was that many title defenses on this card, which it's nitpicking, but like Will Ospreay holding the international championship, losing to Swerve, but he still keeps his belt. I've never really been a fan of that in pro wrestling. If you ever do a champion versus champion match and not both titles being on the line. But hey, is this a situation where we're going to go into Daniel Garcia going for the international championship? Is this a situation where he gets involved in the world championship? What do they do? And then obviously,
so the cool thing is Daniel Garcia is going to, so the international championship is on the line on Wednesday.
It is.
Yes.
But my point that I'm trying to make though is, he's in the suite watching a world championship match, right? And that's cool that he's watching. I like it. But okay, cool. He's got a match on Dynamite. It feels kind of random, not entirely random, because he's kind of been involved in this.
Yes.
But it would be nice if every single week it was leading up to this.
Yes.
A little bit longer of a build to get there.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I look at it.
Weeks. Yep. That's
exactly
fair. That's fair.
Especially because when you look at AEW, my biggest critique is just inconsistency. You make a guy look good for a couple weeks, and after they look kind of bad, and then they lose a little bit of steam, and then eventually you kind of bring them back to this position as if they never lost it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy thinking about like this pay-per-view in general. And I've seen a lot of people tweeting about it, just about how a lot of these matches could have been on Dynamite, or a lot of these matches could have been on Collision. And that's something that you and I talked about, off stream before numerous times, just about how a lot of, I think you tweeted it out, the trios match could have been a match that you just seen on Collision or something like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I don't say that to be a dickhead. I understand why Tony Khan does it for two reasons. One, it's his pay-per-view where he's trying to get all of his top stars, right? He's trying to get some of his popular stars on there. The Forbidden Door format doesn't really help with that, because you're also trying to get CMLL or, New Japan or Stardom. Like, you're trying to get other companies in the mix. This is very difficult to leave Okada off the card, right? Yeah. And obviously they have the storyline going on with the Acclaimed, but that match didn't need to be on this pay-per-view. And quite frankly, like, this won't be the popular opinion, but I felt like the pay-per-view was kind of off to a slow start.
Oh yeah, it was. It really
I really felt that way.
Yeah.
And It's not that MJF and his match was bad. It's not that the trios match was bad, but there's a little bit of a difference when you're watching some of these matches and what really feels important and what feels big time versus some of the other stuff where you're like, man, I could have just watched it on Collision. I could have watched it on Rampage. And you know, that is a testament to AEW putting on some pretty good matches for TV.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for people who pay $50, like they're not going to complain about that, you know, like, oh, sweet, I got this match on pay-per-view. But it just sometimes it doesn't feel as important. And let's talk about that, right? MJF, first match, not a bad match at all, you know, but at the same time, too, I don't think people really cared for this match. I think the perception is reality. And even though it was a fine match and MJF is just fucking awesome and he's selling and he's doing a lot of cool character stuff in the match, I think some people kind of looked at this match and were like, who cares? You know,
dude, I'll be the first to tell you, I was that person. It was so like, of course, I love seeing MJF on my TV. I think that's just fair to say in general, right? But coming into this match, I think they announced it, 2 weeks ago?
Something like that.
Yeah, I can't even remember. But again, that's how, like, and excuse me, I'm not familiar with CMLL like that, you know, or I'm not so super familiar with Stardom. Just, you know, I'm surface level with New Japan Pro Wrestling, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? So it's like these kind of things. It's like, I wish you told me just a tad bit more of a story. That way I could know, number one, I could know who he's facing instead of going on Twitter and Twitter telling me who he's facing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I get that for sure. And I think, you know, as far as that goes, like I'm gonna be real with you. Like as far as that goes, I don't agree with you.
Okay. All right.
I don't. I feel like AEW, if there was one thing that I always used to complain about was how they would introduce talent from other companies. Excalibur and the commentary team have been really good about this stuff. In recent weeks, AEW has done video packages of some sorts. I think when it comes to talking about importance, it's the purpose of why something is happening. We saw MJF have a really cool TV feud with Roosh, and then we got that payoff on TV, and then it just immediately jumped into this other thing where it's like, okay, we're going to do this instead, or we're going to do this right after. And if you looked at the build between Roosh and MJF, the cool thing about that was there was a little bit of a backstory to that before they were injured. So, you know, the thing with AEW, and this is why I think wrestling fans just think maybe we're so anti-AEW or whatever, but it's not that we're anti-AEW. It's we see them do cool shit. We see them do good stuff. And then the timing of how they do it or how they execute it, like the intention is good. The idea is good. And then what they do right after that, that's the issue.
Right.
And so, yeah, some of the matches on the card, I don't feel like needed to be on the card. And those matches could have been a main event for TV, which probably would have been a little bit better for the TV episode to begin with, right? MJF ends up winning the first match. Cool, not a big deal. I love the fact that MJF was selling the arm. There was a lot of talk about maybe him being legitimately injured. I don't know.
I texted you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking like that, and I just think he's an artistic person. Like he's very, very good.
He tweeted out, he was like, put some ice on it, I'm good.
Yeah, like this guy, I like the way he sells. But I thought the match was fine. It just didn't seem like a pay-per-view match, you know?
Right.
Then we get the Okada Young Bucks versus Hiroshi Tanahashi and the Acclaimed. Me personally, like I'll say this, like I didn't give a flying shit about this match.
I mean, I love seeing Okada on my screen.
You know, too. I love the Elite. I think Young Bucks and Okada are great. This is just another example of like, this didn't need to be there.
Right. Exactly. It really was. And then like I don't know, it was so confusing because, okay, so maybe it's because, you know, you become accustomed to what WWE has been doing recently and you expect some kind of payoff from like almost everything. Right.
Yeah.
So when I seen Billy Gunn run into the ring, I was like, oh, is he about to turn finally? And then nothing happens. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. No, he was just there. And it's just one of those things where you expect something and you don't necessarily get it. I know that they haven't teased it at all, but still, you know what I mean?
I mean, I'll tell you right now, I've never been more disinterested in the Acclaimed. And I was hoping because they did like a little bit of with Tanahashi being hurt after the match. I was actually hoping like maybe Max Caster would turn on Anthony Bowens, because I just want to see him be a singles guy. Like, that guy could be a singles champion in AEW. I've been saying for years I would actually put the world title on him. I know a shit ton of people in the internet wrestling community do not fucking agree with me, but I just think that guy is very talented.
Okay.
I feel like Max Caster is holding him back, to be honest. I really do.
So you think Bowens is being held back?
100%. I think the Acclaimed is no longer cool. It's not the same thing. The scissor me daddy ass bullshit has been going on for a very long time. And I think you can tell with the crowd reactions. Some people really, really love it. And I think some people are just sick and tired of it. It ran its course.
I was about to say it kind of, because, they're not the New Day or anything like that. And I hate to compare them all to the WWE and stuff like that, but it's just where I take comparison from. But
in regards to what, though? Popularity or what?
Popularity, the hype, because the New Day's always carried some kind of hype. They've always had at least some kind of way to tweak themselves and reinvent themselves. And I feel like the Acclaimed haven't been able to do that.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, though, not to shit on you, but I feel like the New Day has been very stale for like the last 2 years.
Maybe the last couple of years, but I think that's why we're at where we're at with that storyline. But again, you talk about it running its course. That's exactly what it's done. You're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'll agree with you on but my problem is I don't know if Max Caster is the one that's holding him back. I think the name, the Acclaimed, is holding him back, because Max Caster I like a lot.
No, I honestly, I think, I don't think he's that, like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead. I think,
no, that's cool.
Like, I think he's cool with like his raps and shit. I thought his freestyle tonight was fire, but like, when it comes to watching this group and they're teaming up and they're going up against the trios of the elite, like, for me, first of all, there was no way in hell that the Acclaimed and Tanahashi were going to beat Okada and the Young Bucks.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's just no way that was going to happen, right? But like, nothing came from it. And I just don't care about the Acclaimed. I don't know. It's like, to me, I think Max Caster is holding back Anthony Bowens. I think and this is just personal opinion, but like, I think from a singles run, I think both guys would be good as singles guys. I think if Anthony Bowens like became a little bit more serious and Max Caster continued to do his thing as a singles guy, I think it actually works out for both of them.
Yeah.
Also, let me just say this too. I don't like the fact that AEW tag team champions are teaming up with Okada and not defending their tag team title belts at a pay-per-view. So that's another thing.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. Again, it goes back to like not to talk about the pre-show, but like seeing the House of Black on the pre-show. It's like, all right, what are they doing here? Like, put them on the main card. You know what I mean? Have the Bucks defend their titles.
So imagine that. You got Private Party, Ishii, Kyle O'Reilly tag teaming. You got Roderick Strong and Gabe Kidd. And who else I'm missing? Oh, House of Black.
Yep.
So you have that. Like, imagine if you just did a multi-man tag team match at the pay-per-view. But this is AEW, and I get it. The Elite are kind of doing their own fucking thing because they've overtaken the company. But that is just one of those things where I notice I'm like, the Continental Champion and then the fucking tag team champions. They're
now they have the TNT Championship too.
And we'll talk about the TNT Championship.
Yep.
We did get a super chat, so I do want to read it from Rob. Rob Herring Jr. says, why couldn't it be MJF versus Okada for the belt? Because the storyline wasn't built up that way. Why didn't they go back in time and why didn't they talk about this kind of stuff to plan it out that way too soon? You don't want to rush Okada and MJF. Like, in my opinion, I don't think you would want to.
No.
Definitely a match I look forward to. I think it's going to be really fun to watch that. I think a lot of people underestimate how good MJF is, but 1,000,000%, I would love to see this match, but it shouldn't be happening at Forbidden Door, and it shouldn't be happening for the Continental Classic Championship or whatever.
No, that's a world championship caliber match.
Yeah. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. So let me just say, with the trios match, I didn't really care about it. It was a fine match. Tanahashi was the one who got hit with the Rainmaker, which was cool. But this is one of those matches that just didn't need to be on the card. It was fine for what it was. I don't feel cheated because it was on the card. I just didn't care as much, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi.
Oh,
dude, I love. So this is when I talk about the future is bright for AEW. This is part of that.
Yeah.
Bryan Danielson, There's a little bit of a story going on with him that I really like. You know, you're starting to wonder if he's going to retire, if he'll ever be able to win the AEW World Championship. And, you know, we'll see obviously what happens as time goes on. This is a tournament quarterfinal. Danielson wins. He wins with the armbar. It's fun.
I love it.
I maybe thought this match would have been better than what it was, but I felt like it was completely fine, fun to watch. Danielson is just such a joy to watch. I feel like he's just super great at what he's doing with this stuff. And then on top of that, I feel like there was a little spot where Takagi mocked Danielson with the yes chant.
Oh, dude.
And I like shit like that, you know, like.
Yeah, because even in the first match, what's his name? The match with MJF, how he flipped off the crowd and stuff like that. Like, I love, especially because, again, I'm not too familiar with these people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But to see you almost griping on them a little bit, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is beautiful, and this is what I needed out of this. Thank you. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
The thing is, not everybody in the crowd knows who some of these talents are.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like a lot of people should know who Shingo is if you watch New Japan, obviously, but let's just say you don't know him. When he's doing these yes chants, like he's making a mockery of Brian, the cool thing is you're kind of showing a little bit of personality without a microphone in your hand, without an interview, without a you know, promo or whatever. Like you're doing the storytelling and like the character work just through taunts and in-ring work, you know?
Yeah.
So that is something I did appreciate. But yeah, great match. I thought it could have been a little bit better. Like this wasn't the greatest match that Danielson has had, but like fun match. Cool. You know, it was on the card. You know, putting a quarterfinal on a pay-per-view is a really interesting choice. Yes. Again, didn't need to be on the card, but I get it. You want both of the stars to be on the card in some capacity. That's the way they did it.
Yep.
We had Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa, and I love this. I've been a very big fan of the storyline with Toni and Mariah May and Mina. And you know, one of the things that I just wanted to say about this, and it goes back to when I say the future is bright, two things, right? Fun, good wrestling match. The character stuff is fantastic. The ending of the match with all three women kissing, cool.
Yep.
You know, if for those who know Mariah May and her experience in Japan, and then obviously with Mina, and then of course Toni Storm, there's a little bit of a dynamic there. This, in my opinion, it was cool to see this match on the card. I didn't necessarily like the match placement because it kind of felt like Mercedes match was a bigger deal than this.
But
where I would say
championship.
This is the world championship, and this is the women's. I mean, this is one of the bigger stories for the women. But I liked it. It was kind of like a feel good ending type of thing. And, you know, for me, one of my big complaints with AEW has been, how can you make the women's division feel more important? They have some great names, and I love what they're doing with Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa. I like what they're doing with Mercedes Moné. I like what they're doing in this particular situation with Toni and Mina.
They did some cool things tonight for that women's division. Correct.
Match placement, I don't agree with. Match was fun. Loved it. I want more attention on this kind of stuff moving forward. I understand, like, the storyline was right there, and then we also got to factor in Mariah May being in the tournament. There is more coming to this.
Absolutely.
I like that. There's definitely more coming to this, and we'll have to pay attention to that.
Again, you leave those cliffhangers. You leave them.
Where does this go? Who knows?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, like this, I don't know where they go with this, but I do like the fact that this is something where you can continue the momentum with it.
Yeah, and you want to get invested in it.
100%. Yes, definitely. And look, like Toni Storm, we know is a great wrestler. This character is very fun. My fear is that people will get sick of this character. And I don't know what they do when it runs its course, but I don't want them to do the same thing with the Acclaimed, where you just keep doing the same thing and then people eventually tune out. They're not at that stage yet. Let me be clear. They're not at that stage yet. But it is important to recognize that because of the fact that this isn't the co-main event. This is the Women's World Championship belt. And it's what, the third or fourth match on the card? So
Yeah.
could have been a little bit higher on the card, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
With that being said, we also get Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy. And you could tell me your thoughts. I'll tell you what I think. You let me know what you think. And yeah.
I like Zack Sabre Jr. I love Orange Cassidy. For me, again, I am sorry if I am coming off very negative here. I apologize, people. But for me, my gripe on this is I know there's been some kind of something going on Dynamite and stuff like that with these two. The match itself is so good and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. You're playing into the character of Orange Cassidy, and then you're making Zack Sabre Jr. look exactly like what he is, and that's one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. And then, the finish of that match was a little interesting. It's so hard, right? Because, how many people are going to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling and going to see the follow-up of Zack Sabre Jr. winning this match? You know what I mean? That's kind of my gripe on this. I hate to say it like that, but that's just how I feel about it.
I actually love this match.
Okay.
I love that Orange Cassidy can do his comedy. I like when Orange Cassidy could be serious. I think a lot of people sleep on Orange Cassidy. I thought this match was fun. I'm fine with it being on the pay-per-view.
Okay.
I did think it was interesting having Zack win, but at the same time too, I loved the finish of this match. And, to me, I don't really have a problem with this, right? But what I would say is when you have a match like this, man, can you do something to spice it up a little bit? I don't know what it would be either. There's not a title on the line or anything like that, but something just to spice it up a little bit. But I liked it. I liked it.
Like I said, the match itself is great. Me personally, it was hard for me to get invested in it. That's what it is. I don't really have investment inside of it. I think go ahead.
When you look at the concept of Forbidden Door, very few matches can you truly be like emotionally tied to.
Call me crazy, dude. I think the Forbidden Door, the way that they're doing it right now is played out.
Well, they did announce, so we could talk about this for a quick second. We could pivot. New Japan Pro Wrestling, January 5th, 2025. They have announced Wrestle Dynasty. And Wrestle Dynasty is a pay-per-view between New Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL, AEW, and Ring of Honor.
And Stardom.
And Stardom, correct. Yeah. And that's going to be taking place next year at the Tokyo Dome. In my opinion, I would rather like to see that happen every January versus AEW doing Forbidden Door. And this is just my opinion with the Forbidden Door concept. I feel like the pay-per-view was fine, but I mean, AEW signed the top stars from Japan.
You know what I'm saying? Okada's there.
And to be fair, like they're gonna have to get very creative next year if they want to keep doing this pay-per-view.
Yeah, for sure.
They have to get creative. And then if you're doing Wrestle Dynasty, it becomes redundant in my opinion.
Yeah, because then it's not a Forbidden Door anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. For AEW to go to Japan, by the way, they haven't had a pay-per-view in Japan. That pay-per-view is going to be with New Japan and like New Japan doing all the logistics behind it from behind the scenes and production and stuff. I feel like that should be the route for them to go. But also, I feel like part of like, and I've said this about WWE and NXT and TNA and stuff. I think like it shouldn't, having an event is cool and a talent exchange is cool, but like, imagine if you just make it the norm where New Japan talents are showing up. And I get it's hard because of travel and stuff. Yeah. But if you could get Zack Sabre Jr. on TV, 4 or 5 weeks in a row before Double or Nothing or a pay-per-view, and then you just do the story there. Like,
Right.
you can have New Japan talent on your show without necessarily having a pay-per-view between both companies.
Yeah.
But then if you want to do a pay-per-view, Wrestle Dynasty is like the perfect example of how to do it.
Go over to Japan and you do it. It doesn't, it doesn't hurt anybody.
But then also too, like when AEW does All In, hey, what was the original All In 2018? Indie companies and everybody coming together. So maybe, the headliner should always be your world championship or whatever, but feature some of those other matches. I would much rather see that.
Yeah.
But I did like the Zack Sabre stuff with OC. We'll see. Obviously, I do feel like maybe it's kind of run its course between him and OC, but yeah, I would honestly, I would have loved to see Zack Sabre Jr. go for a belt, but
almost, like you said, spicing it up a little bit.
Yeah. We did get a couple super chats, so I do want to get to those. Sam Piboon says, will you talk about DMD Britt Baker's return tonight? Yes, we will get to that in just a little bit. I will return your answer to the super chat. And Daniel Len dropped a $1.99. There seems to be no comment attached to that. I'm sorry, Daniel. I don't see a comment on there, but I do appreciate the super chat. Don't forget, guys, when you drop a super chat, it guarantees that we will answer your questions and comments. So feel free to drop a super chat. We'll keep it going. Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata versus Jeff Cobb, Chris Jericho, and Big Bill. I was trolling a little bit on Twitter today.
Were you?
Yeah, I said I was just kind of being dumb and funny, but I was like, very little that I'm invested in when it comes to Forbidden Door, but I am watching because there's definitely a few matches I want to see. I'm really excited for Swerve and Ospreay, Mina, and Tony Storm, and yes, of course, I'm really, really excited for Chris Jericho and the Learning Tree.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, guys, listen, I'm gonna be so honest with you. The booking of this match, fantastic, and Hook being the one to actually win the match and do the Judas effect on Chris Jericho, wonderful booking.
It was so clean too.
I loved it. Like, as far as that goes, I loved it.
Yeah.
I have nothing against Chris Jericho on a personal level. Even on like a professional level, I think Chris Jericho does get a lot of hate from the wrestling fans because of the Learning Tree. And the thing is, the Learning Tree is definitely like it's cheesy, it's corny. Yeah. It's him basically doing or saying things that are like opposite of what the IWC agrees with.
The thing is he's trying to make you hate him.
He is. And to be honest with you, there's a difference between hating a heel because they're like a really good heel and then just hating them because the shit sucks. And the thing is, I don't hate the Learning Tree. I really don't. I don't like the direction they've gone with it. And personally speaking, like, this didn't have to be on the pay-per-view, right? We were talking about match placement for the women's championship and the fact that this took
the spot.
Like, yeah, of course. I just didn't like it. I love Shibata. I love Hook. I love Samoa Joe. I also feel like it is kind of weird that Samoa Joe like dropped his title and never really went back for it. But at the same time, too, even though I do hate that, I fucking actually love
Hook and Joe.
Samoa Joe and Hook. I don't know what it is. Their dynamic is like really cool.
Dude, it's almost like a nonchalant, relaxed, laid back, but I'll still beat the shit out of you kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah. I did. I like I said, I don't really care for the Learning Tree. I feel like it's also really random for Jeff Cobb to be with them. But again, it's just the point of getting a New Japan talent on the show and whatever. But I will say, I did like the booking of this match.
Yeah.
Like,
the finish.
Yeah. Like, honestly, it's smart. Like, it was a good creative decision. I care to see how they follow up, obviously, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but I do like the fact that Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata won.
Yep.
And I do like their chemistry together as a tag team, trio, whatever. Like, it's actually fun.
Shibata being in it is great too, because he's doing the stuff with the phone.
He cuts the best promos in wrestling, so he really does, though. Yeah. We'll keep it moving. We get a ladder match for the vacant TNT Championship. Konosuke Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Jack Perry, Leo Rush, Dante Martin, and El Phantasmo. Billy, let me ask you, because I have a lot of opinions on this. But this led to a win for Jack Perry.
Yep.
And I would love to know your thoughts on it.
I'm so happy Jack Perry won. Strictly off the fact that I think you add now to the Elite in the storyline that you have going on there. I've talked about it over on my channel a little bit where I've said, I don't know what the ending of this storyline looks like, but I like the idea of this storyline right now. It's kind of hard to depict exactly what it is, but seeing all four of these guys have a championship, I think it makes the heel factor of it seem more important. The match itself is obviously a great match. I think because at this point, for me at least, it felt like maybe the show wasn't doing everything that it needed to for me. But at this point, I had woken up, I had gained some energy, seeing some really cool spots. Dante Martin being amazing. I think it was the blue thunder bomb through the table and stuff like that. Like there were some great spots in this match that really woke me up from the pay-per-view. If I'm being honest, it was right after Hook did the Judas effect. I was like, okay, I popped up. Then getting prepared for this match, I was like, oh, we'll see. And then you see the spots in the match, and I'm like, okay, this is what I needed. You see the crowd starting to wake up and stuff like that. So yeah, no, for me, I love seeing Jack Perry win just to add more legitimacy to the Elite and what they got going on right now.
Yeah, I don't like the decision of having Jack Perry win.
I love that you were going against the grain here. Come on, tell me why.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been pretty much on record consistently. I'm not a fan of this Jack Perry character.
You think it plays too much into Punk?
No, I don't even think that. I mean, it was interesting because the airing the Punk footage is, in my opinion, I said it in real time.
We talked about that. That was cheesy.
There was no benefit to it.
No,
and Jack Perry winning the TNT championship is like, you could have done it without airing the Punk footage, but you've kind of split up your audience. Like Punk is not even in the company, and there's people who are cheering for CM Punk, and then you obviously have the fuck CM Punk or whatever, and or we want real, what is it? We want real glass chance or whatever. In my opinion, the Jack Perry character, I just don't, and I'm not like, look, at the end of the day, this is just my view as a fan of watching wrestlers on TV, right? Jack Perry's a hell of a wrestler. This match was a fucking banger. They put the right people on there. I thought everybody had great moments. There might be an injury for Mark Briscoe too, which kind of looked crazy, but here's my thing, right? And I don't give a fuck what anybody says here, but this is why I can't go for Jack Perry. Jack Perry is part of the Elite.
Yeah.
And even though I don't care for Jack Perry, I do admit that he's good with the Elite.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
The fit and everything works, and it's logical, and they're making sense out of it.
Especially with the character that he's playing.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching this match and I see Konosuke Takeshita, again, looks so incredible, and I'm sitting here wondering, why isn't this guy winning the belt? Now, Albert mentioned it in the chat. He says, well, Takesha's going to the G1, so that's the main reason I'm okay with Perry winning the title. Guys, I'm sorry to say this, but if AEW and New Japan work together, Konosuke Takeshita could show up to the G1 with the TNT championship, which would probably be a benefit to AEW as well. But the thing is, Konosuke Takeshita is my fucking guy.
Yeah, you've been really high on him for a long time.
Very high. Babyface Takeshita, heel Takeshita.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. This guy is like somebody, and I actually mean this, like he's somebody I would try to insert into the world title picture at some point.
That's fair.
He's a world championship caliber guy. I love watching this guy on TV. I've become a very big fan of this guy. I feel like he's been presented well. But when it's the big match or when it really counts, it's like they don't pull the trigger on Takeshita. Now, in comparison to Jack Perry, if Jack Perry loses this match, right, the Elite have taken over the company. So it's very easy for the Elite to be like, oh, you guys, like they could justify Jack Perry losing by being like, that's some bullshit.
Yeah,
what they did was illegal. Blah, blah.
Yeah, you could do the heel shit.
They, of course, and then they could force him into a storyline back into the title scene or whatever it may be. Takeshita is one of those guys where I'm afraid he loses when it matters most. And he's got that coolness factor, so it doesn't hurt him as much. But I said this with Keith Lee. I said this with the Acclaimed breaking up or winning the tag titles or whatever. And a lot of times in AEW history, Wardlow's a great example. There becomes a point in time where it's like, if you don't pull the fucking trigger,
it's gonna
you
die
might
down.
miss the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Are we at that stage with Takeshita? No, I don't believe so. But that is a concern that I have.
Yep.
And so therefore, when I see this match, I'm like, okay, this is great. You could have any one of these people win. Aside from El Fantasmo,
yeah,
like he's there to be a great part of the match, you know?
Right. Uh-huh.
But if you really wanted Dante Martin, like all these guys,
if you want me to be honest, I thought going into the match, and this is going to sound crazy because of just a part of me was like, well, I wouldn't be mad if Dante Martin won this match. I know that sounds crazy, but I think like you're saying, like anybody could have won this match.
Well, so if you're yes, anybody could have won this match, but if you're trying to be realistic, like Mark Briscoe obviously held, ROH, he's doing the thing in ROH too. Leo Rush is somebody that's like starting to be on AEW TV more, should be on TV more, regardless of the partnership with New Japan, right? Like that's the belief. Leo Rush being a TNT champion, maybe treat the TNT championship because it's their TV equivalent championship. Kind of treat it like the Cruiserweight X Division belt. Let these guys do exciting things.
Yeah.
But when I look at a singles guy where I'm like, man, that he's already so good. You put the title around his waist, it like cements his legacy a little bit more. Yeah. It's Takeshita. I don't feel like Jack Perry needs it. I'm just being honest. I don't think he needs it. I'm not a big fan of Jack Perry. I've been very like adamant about that, but I look at it from the perspective of, hey, if you pull the trigger on Takeshita, like you give him the TNT championship. The cool thing is he's going to do great matches, but he's got the coolness factor down.
Yep.
He's already over and he's a fucking heel. Cool. Like, cool. Can you build something with that? You absolutely can. And the cool thing is, you really want to screw Takeshita and give the belt to Jack Perry, you build that up for All In.
That's fair.
And then the Elite can screw Takeshita. And then, oh, by the way, you got the Don Callis family then feuding with the Elite.
Now, my problem with that, though, is that I mean, I know it doesn't really matter, but they're too heel.
Sure.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
Okay. All right.
Factions.
All right.
Build the purpose.
Just two factions getting in the way of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is where the winner's purse, right? This is the company where wins matter and you get more money for being a champion and stuff like that. And
we gotta all be after the championship.
Yeah, definitely love this match. It woke the crowd up for sure. I felt like it shifted the momentum for the pay-per-view. This is when things really, really picked up.
Yep.
I did like, by the way, I think you mentioned the Blue Thunder Bomb onto the table.
Dude, that was such a cool spot.
Yeah, just great match. Honestly, great match. What they do with Jack Perry next, I have no idea, but now the Elite have the tag titles, the Continental Classic, and the TNT Championship belt all being held captive. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how they get the belt off Jack Perry, how they get the belt off Okada. I look forward to seeing how they book around it for sure. We get Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Vaquer? I think it might be Vaquer. Vaquer? Yeah. Vaquer? I honestly, I have a hard time pronouncing some of the talent's name. I'm not too familiar with her. I've seen a little bit of her in CMLL, and then obviously, pulling up on TV and shit like that. Like I'm looking into it a little bit more. Yeah. Fucking great match. Honestly.
I was about to say, for somebody I am not familiar with.
Yeah.
Great match.
Yeah. Great match.
She stood out more than any of the talent, me personally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
She stood out more than anybody else that was on that card coming from CMLL at least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She stood out very, very well, and she looked amazing in that match.
She's great. I would love for Tony Khan to bring her in like more often.
Yep.
This is a title match. The crowd is split. In fact, this crowd was kind of anti-Mercedes,
which is crazy.
So Mercedes obviously wins. She's NJPW Strong Women's Champion. She's AEW TBS Champion. I love Mercedes Moné.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this match was great. I thought the booking of it is completely fine. I would love to see them run it back.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I didn't like about this match is that it took priority over Tony and Mina.
Which we talked about earlier.
And I that was my only negative thing, really. I didn't like the fact that this match, the TBS championship.
But looking at what
President's
happened
over
after the match, can I ask you this? Looking at what happened after the match, do you think that maybe that could have been the reason why? Or is it just because it's Mercedes and Mercedes maybe in somebody's mind takes precedence over it?
Yeah, so let's go back to Sam's super chat.
Mm-hmm.
DMD, Britt Baker comes out at the end. Nice little surprise. Britt Baker and Mercedes feuding for the TBS championship is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if this was WWE and a mid-card title was taking priority over the world championship, we all know what the reaction would be.
People would be losing their mind.
We know this reaction.
Mm-hmm.
This is a feud for the world championship, not the TBS championship.
Mm-hmm.
This is AEW, by the way. Let me just point out, this is AEW trying to protect Tony while at the same time protecting Britt and Mercedes. I get it. I actually get it, by the way. I understand why.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, if I was Britt Baker, why am I coming after Mercedes when to be the world champion?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a higher prestige.
Right.
This is me nitpicking because that's what I do in pro wrestling. But I'm very excited about Britt Baker coming back. And I'm very excited about her feuding with Mercedes. Feuding for the TBS championship.
A little crazy.
I just wish it was for the world championship.
Yeah, because it's world championship caliber. Because
here's the thing. If I'm just throwing a hypothetical out, but let's say Deonna Purrazzo or Thunder Rosa now feud with Toni Storm for the title. Let's say that's the feud for All In.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how great the build is, when you're putting the name value of Britt Baker and Mercedes as your two top women going for the TBS championship,
that match is always going to take.
It's going to take precedence over the other one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just me. Like I said, I'm nitpicking it a little bit, but that's kind of how I look at it.
That's one of those things that you should feel comfortable nitpicking. You know what I mean? Because that's an important piece. Like, it's just knowing the difference. Like, who your two stars are here. Yeah. And you know that you have your world championship on Toni Storm. Okay. Again, you have to ask yourself, am I making the right decision here? And this is, for Tony, asking yourself, am I making the right decision here? Or am I hate to say it, but it's almost like a favoritism thing.
Well, you got to wonder, like, I know Eric Bischoff, I saw a clip on Twitter. Eric Bischoff doesn't think Mercedes is working for AEW. Like,
this man does not like AEW.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people don't. But
no,
there is a little bit of truth to that. There is a little bit of truth. When you look at like statistics and like analytics and like numbers, AEW brought in Adam Copeland and Will Ospreay and Okada and Mercedes. They brought in some very big names.
Nothing
and it
hasn't the system.
It doesn't. And the numbers show that, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking just TV ratings, but I'm talking all around. So yeah. I do think there is a little bit of truth to that. With that being said, though, when I see this match with Stephanie and Mercedes, and I'm like, wow, this is great. I have to give AEW their flowers for getting to the point where their women's division, it's improving a lot.
Oh, God.
It's improving a lot. Now, I don't want them to fall into a hole where they're like, hey, this belt is going to be better than this belt. Mm-hmm. If you could level out the playing field, that would be great, but the world title should be above it.
Yeah, absolutely. And make that, it's just telling the story. Make sure that world championship story is one of the best.
Okay, but let's say they tell an incredible story, but it's Serena Deeb feuding with Toni Storm, and I'm just throwing out this name.
Yeah.
Do you think that match has the same level of like aura than Mercedes and Britt Baker? No, because they haven't
yeah.
effectively built Serena Deeb to be that person.
Right.
No matter how good the storyline is,
she's just
perception is
not the top.
reality.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
that's why I liked the TBS championship when Julia Hart was holding it, because when she was holding the belt, it was like, we know that she's not a main event talent, but she's holding it down and she's going to use this title to get to that main event spot.
Yep.
And then we're looking at Mercedes holding this belt, and it's like, ooh, this feels a little bit more like the main event title. This feels more of like the
World
you know what I'm
Championship.
saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Again, it's a nitpick, but I do think that is a concern, and I don't like that idea because of the fact that their women's division is fucking awesome, bro. They've gotten to a point where it's actually improving.
It's becoming one of my favorite parts about AEW, especially after bringing Britt Baker back.
Yeah. Britt is awesome, dude. I think
I
the
love
IWC
seeing her on TV.
I missed her, bro.
Me too.
Honestly.
And you felt her absence.
You did. 100%, you know, and it's something to pay attention to. And one thing too, Sam, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Billy, I'll say this. We still haven't seen Camille in the company.
Nope. No, we have not.
And so, like, do you put Camille for the world championship?
You can build a good story out of it.
But do more people know Camille, or do they know Britt Baker and Mercedes?
Well, of course they know Mercedes and Britt Baker.
See what I'm saying, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. For sure, it's interesting. Cedric dropped a super chat for $5. He says, didn't get a chance to watch the pay-per-view, but are they setting up Ospreay and Swerve part 2 at All In? So we talked a little bit about this in the beginning because we talked about the main event first. I don't know if it's going to be for All In because of the Owen Hart Cup tournament, but the way that they did this finish tells me that there is a way for them to revisit this storyline.
Yeah, they left a lot of things open.
Maybe even a double turn.
I haven't seen one of those in a long time.
It's kind of cool watching them, and you're like, well, technically Swerve is a babyface, and technically Ospreay's a heel, but like they're just like two tweeners, you know?
Yeah, they, dude, like we said, you know, that shit apparently doesn't matter, at least not in this case scenario.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't either. It was just two guys putting on a great wrestling match and telling a fucking awesome story.
Yeah, this fucking awesome match. 5 stars for me.
5 stars, hands down.
Yeah. Thank you, Cedric, for the super chat. Quickly, we have Jon Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm just being so honest. Like, I didn't care about this match.
Did you not?
Fun match. I just didn't care.
I mean, there was no, you know, story being told on American soil, stuff like that.
Not just in general, you know, I get it. Like Jon Moxley is he's awesome. I love Moxley. Yeah.
Dude gets a lot of hate on the internet. I don't like it.
Nah, I don't know. Nah, he's great. You know, the thing is, I just don't really care. I don't think, regardless, I think for the IWGP championship, like IWGP heavyweight championship, no matter what it would have been on this card, unless it was like Kenny Omega or Bryan Danielson fighting like Okada or Ospreay or something like that. Like, I feel like it's very hard. As somebody who was like excited for this pay-per-view, like certain things on the card, this was one of those things I just never really cared about. I think a lot of that just has to do with Swerve and Ospreay. To me, was like the match that I really want to see.
That's what. So getting through this pay-per-view, that's what it was. It was just getting to that point, that end.
Yeah. I do think part of that happens though, where it's like, okay, this pay-per-view is going on really long, and like the match I really want to see, I have to wait.
Yep.
From a booking perspective, totally cool with Moxley dropping the belt.
I'm also cool with the match placement of this match too. You know,
no, for sure. If you're doing anything with New Japan, it's going to be AEW's title first, and then this.
Yep.
Makes sense from that perspective. I get it. You know, the thing is with the IWGP Championship, IWGP Heavyweight Championship, like I feel like when Ospreay left AEW, this is when things kind of went downhill for New Japan. Like they lost Okada, they lost Jon Moxley.
Yeah, they sent a lot of their heavyweight talent leave.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's very fair.
But the good thing is they needed to drop the belt, and they're going to bring it back to Japan,
Yeah,
obviously.
and Naito winning it is always cool. Definitely a cool moment for him too.
I do love they've been doing this with Forbidden Door, and I appreciate this. When it's the IWGP Heavyweight Championship belt, it's the referee from Japan.
And yep, I love it.
There was a moment with the steel chair, and it's gonna kill me because I can't remember how the chair got in the ring, but
Moxley
I know
grabbed it.
He grabbed it, and he was gonna do like what's his move?
Yeah, he said it. He was gonna do the
I forget what he calls it, but it's like the DDT paradigm shift. Yeah, is that what he calls it in AEW?
Yeah, it's the paradigm shift.
Okay,
it used to be the dirty deeds.
Yes, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I like that because then the ref, he takes away the chair. Like just I don't know, like I like that. I like those little details.
Yeah,
AEW refs and New Japan refs could be somewhat lenient in a match, but I like that the ref in a way was trying to
he was trying to prevent it.
Yeah, and like kind of protect the lineage and the prestige of a title from New Japan. As somebody who likes Jon Moxley, I would really, really love to see the BCC go and feud with the Elite.
Yes.
But it's weird because the BCC has like zero momentum as well. So yeah, I mean, look, from that perspective of moving forward, I hope they get back on track with all of them together now that Yuta's back, but just weird. I don't know. I didn't hate this. I didn't love it. To me, it was just whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
And then, we had the main event with Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, and we all know how I felt about that. I loved it. I do want to point out that there was a very interesting post that went out on social media during the pay-per-view. Dominic Dijakovic, aka Dijak, was backstage at AEW Forbidden Door.
No shit.
The way I look at it is we know there's going to be people coming in. Ricochet is going to be coming in. We know Dijak's going to be coming in. Camille's coming in. I think AEW is very inconsistent of a company, but I feel like tonight was a little bit much more good than bad. I want to see them build off some momentum and just like be consistent. Like that's all I'm asking for. If you're going to bring in Dijak, you're going to bring in Ricochet. Now you got other people on the roster who already aren't being used, feel less important,
Yep.
I don't want that to happen. I really am one of those guys, perception's reality. And like you could tell with the crowd reactions tonight, some people just simply didn't care. And then there was things that happened throughout the night where the crowd was super bought in and, a little bit of a longer pay-per-view, obviously. And it's important for us to acknowledge that AEW, they're struggling, bro. And then they do some cool shit tonight, and it's like, I want you to fucking capitalize off of it.
I'm excited for Wednesday now.
No, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and act like I'm excited for Wednesday.
I'm
excited for a couple things to potentially see on Wednesday.
I think that's fair to say.
But
that's what it is.
That's how it's always going to be with AEW until they consistently every single week follow up and follow up and follow up. Okay. It's a fundamental thing. AEW doesn't do it. I don't think they will do it. I hope they do it. It's not me being critical. It's me being just realistic.
Yeah, but at this point.
I will say this before we end the night because it is 1 a.m. and I know people got to work and you got to work and I got to work and I work. I do this, but
a lot of work.
I will say this though. I seen people in the chat. They're comparing Clash at the Castle and this. Peacock is what? $5 a month?
$5.99.
If Clash at the Castle fucking sucks, dude,
you didn't lose the world.
You didn't lose shit. If Forbidden Door sucks, you just lost $50 fucking.
I'm hurt.
So my point is this, and I said this since day one. AEW pay-per-views are always a bang for your buck. They are. I want their TV to be as good consistently every single week. You can't compare Clash at the Castle and this. Clash at the Castle, 5 matches, 5 strong storylines. Like everything feels important. This is a pay-per-view where there's 14 or 15 matches and a few of the matches feel important and several matches you could do without.
Mm-hmm.
Mark my words, if AEW is not charging $50 for a pay-per-view, you will very much see you will very well see a change to the way they do their pay-per-views.
That's a fair thought process.
100%.
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing them monthly, 1,000,000%.
Yep.
You're at like 9 pay-per-views a year now. So I think from a booking perspective, the only one I really disagreed with was Jack Perry, but otherwise, relatively fun pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, like I said, I stand by it. I think there was a lot, what you said, a lot more good than there was bad out of the show. A fan of most of it. Excited for Wednesday. I know you're not, but I am. Looking forward to see what they do going into the couple stories that they do have going on with, Jack Perry.
Is there a storyline right now in AEW that's on the level of the Bloodline?
Hell no.
Okay. I don't need AEW to be like WWE, but just understand that people have literally gotten to the point where they're like, I can't miss SmackDown because I have to see what's happening with the Bloodline.
Absolutely. The thing with AEW is you can still skip it even coming out of the night.
Yes. However,
you want to watch something though.
They have some stuff they could build off of.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a strong pay-per-view. I thought a lot of it didn't need to be on there, but I felt like the booking was good.
The booking was great. Absolutely.
Now, in terms of what is can't miss on Wednesday, they haven't reached that point yet. There is not something on that level where it's like, I can't miss this.
Yeah, because you can go back, watch highlights and stuff like that. Look up the things that were important to you.
Yeah. Now, I did find it interesting because I think this is an issue with TV in general.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd was quiet, and then the crowd would get loud. It was like
so
an inconsistent crowd. And that could be part of the fatigue of sitting there since 6:30 all the way for 5-6 hours. But
like I told you, you just asked me to watch pro wrestling for a quarter of my day.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
Which I do feel bad for because I feel like, between that and then I don't know if they're doing a media scrum or not, but between that and a media scrum and then live reviews and shit, it's like it's already Monday. It's almost 2:00 in the morning. It takes up a lot of time. So
it's tough.
It is what it is. I thought it was a fairly good pay-per-view. I would give it like a 7 out of 10. And like that's a good thing if you guys know my scale. But
7 out of 10 is great.
But like I said, I've been saying this shit since day one. If you spend $50 on an AEW pay-per-view and you like watching good wrestling matches, you get your money's worth. I think I will be more excited about Wrestle Dynasty, but
in January.
Yeah, but then I just don't want to see this concept being too redundant with Forbidden Door and shit. But good for AEW to get out there in Japan. Their partnership, I feel like both companies are benefiting from it, which is good. I think that's really it, man. I really the stuff that I complain about is more of like a logistical or like importance thing, perception thing, and like how to fix that. But yeah, fucking great matches. I just didn't like Jack Perry winning. That's probably my only gripe, and I really don't give a fuck. I guess every time I talk about Jack Perry.
Yeah, that's our only difference. Is I did enjoy Jack Perry.
Yeah, but the thing is, bro, like at the end of the day, I just feel like it's pointless.
Mm-hmm.
He wins the belt,
I see your side. I see your side very clearly. But
I'm not, just so you know, really quick, not to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah,
it's not that like I'm not just coming up with this opinion and being like, oh, Takeshita should have won just because I like Takeshita and I don't like Jack Perry.
It's not a bias thing.
I'm very reasonable in saying, hey, AEW has had a lot of times where people have momentum, they have something good going for them, and you don't capitalize on it, and eventually people just stop caring. And now look, I don't give a fuck about the Acclaimed. I try to get excited about Daniel Garcia because I fucking love this guy. But like, there does come a point. This is an AEW pay-per-view, and Wardlow's not wrestling on a match there. Keith Lee's not wrestling on a match there. Malachi Black's on the fucking pre-show. There's just a lot of guys who don't have that momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've used several examples in recent years, and I don't want that to happen to Takeshita because I really like Takeshita. Yep. Now, Jack Perry, thankfully, is in a storyline.
And he's in a comfortable spot.
Where if he loses, it doesn't affect him at all because the storyline, the actual storyline is this group taking over the company, so they
That's
can do
fair,
whatever
and
the
you
fuck
feel
they
like
want.
the TNT Championship should be a place for somebody to grow.
And I feel like it should catapult you into the world title scene.
Fair. No argument to that.
And so what do I think AEW currently has that with Jack Perry and he was the TNT champion and then it's going to catapult him to what, go against Swerve? Which, by the way, if they booked Swerve and Jack Perry, I would be fucking pissed if they gave the belt to Jack Perry over Swerve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like some fundamental shit that I disagree with. But
yeah, that's fair.
It's not a bad thing. It doesn't make me hate the company or hate things. It's just I would have done it differently. But yeah, overall fun pay-per-view. I thought it was cool. If you guys didn't watch Ospreay and Swerve, go watch it because that shit's a fucking banger.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. That match takes 5 stars in my books.
Oh yeah, I mean,
that was great professional wrestling.
Nah, that shit was crazy.
It was
Such a great match.
Dude,
such a great fucking match.
Amazing. They're both amazing.
Gonna be interesting to see what they do with Ospreay, but we have a little bit of a cliffhanger because of the Don Callis thing. But I will also say I don't really give a shit about Don Callis anymore either.
Yeah, that died down too.
Yeah, but also, you know, it is what it is. They could. Right. It's not completely lost. So
no, you could save it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, we'll call it a night. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by. I understand you guys all got work and school and this and that, and you're all very busy. Almost 750 people joined us at one point, which is great because that kind of seems to be the viewership number.
I was about to say that's the norm for you these days.
Hey, I want to get to a point where we're live with 10,000 people.
Right.
Ratings, brother. Ratings. I want my key demographic to be 18 to 24. No, but I do appreciate you guys coming through. I appreciate everybody for the super chats. Billy is also on YouTube at Billy TKO. So you guys can check him out. My name is Ango at Ango PW everywhere. And thank you all for stopping by.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.